Welcome to the afterlife, and as we refer to it, the gray zone.
Dun, 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 dun.
My name is Cilantro, and I'm joined here today by...
Gary.
But
You were Clyde.
No, I'm
Clyde.
Bonnie now.
You're
No, I'm Bonnie now.
I'm taking over Bonnie.
Alright, so I guess, my name is Cilantro, and I'm joined here today by...
Gary.
Bonnie.
Little shrimp scampi.
Yuck Lord. Darb.
Dwayne.
Dwayne. No,
Yes!
his name should
Dwayne.
be.
Okay.
How about Daquan? Daquan would be perfect.
That's the new hot
Dwayne
sauce for Hot
Daquan.
Ones. That's in season 9.
Oh,
It's
really?
Daquan's hot sauce, yeah.
I think he should
I
be
feel like you guys are
Daquan.
just saying that because one of you is going to hit him and say, "Oh, you hit the Quan."
No. No, Daquan is like a
But
really
perfect.
big, beefy black guy name, and like so it's
He's like a.
the opposite.
See, I'm
That's why I
down for
think it's
Dwayne,
awesome.
but,
See, you're taking stereotypes to the next level, and I don't appreciate it.
I'm sorry, BB. I'm sorry.
All right,
Dwayne.
and Dwayne.
Dwayne.
So,
Dwayne.
for guest speaker. Alright. Today we'll be covering some of that good spooky paranormal type jazz. Who wrote this?
Johnny, I think it's in Johnny speak.
Johnny didn't write it. He was concerned. Specifically, 2 places in Oregon, those being the Shanghai Tunnels and the Oregon State Hospital, formerly known as the Oregon Hospital for the Insane. We'll be going over the history of these places, as well as why they've become the spooky places that they are today. And if we have time in the end, we might just go over some of our own experiences that we've had with the paranormal. I'll go ahead and pass things over to Gary Smith so that we can get right into the Shanghai Tunnels.
The Shanghai Tunnels, also known as the Old Portland Underground, are located in Portland, Oregon on 20 Northwest 3rd Avenue and is primarily underneath the old Chinatown neighborhood and connects the main business section of Portland, which is about 7 miles. If you aren't familiar with Shanghaiing, it refers to kidnapping and selling men to sea captains in need of crewmen. Middlemen would kidnap men and sell them off to captains for as little as $50. These men were then forced to work on ships bound for the Orient with no pay. According to legend as well as some historical data, men were shanghaied in Portland from roughly 1850 to 1941. Things were supposedly at their worst during Prohibition. And
So, what do you guys think about the Shanghai Tunnels?
I think that it's still being used today for other things.
Oh yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
I- Have you been to the Shanghai tunnels there, Yuck Lord?
I probably have. I just not really thinking of it.
It's been a very off day, but I believe that they're still being used today for the same exact reasons.
I want to find where like the opening is, like at the dock. Like I want to see like what that looks like and how like things would have went down.
I'd potentially advise against that because it used to flood over the years, and if you go down there, and lots of it's sealed off now, you go down there, it starts to flood.
You're stuck.
You have to
You're
swim
done.
back out
Yeah.
against the tide.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I'm thinking like when it's safe.
Party.
No,
Okay.
when it's
Party?
like raining.
No.
What? Yeah.
All right. So about the tunnels, we do know there are tours because there's 2 companies. There's one company called like the Portland Underground, and the other one company is called like the Shanghai Tunnel Tours.
Yeah.
One of them was founded by, insert this dude's name here because I don't remember it, who claims to be the unofficial historian of the tunnels. He's the one who says he has this map of the whole thing, and he claims lots of things. And there's a myth about the tunnels being used for Shanghai, and there's not really any hard evidence. There are some editorial broadcasts from 1933 on the radio by Stuart Holbrook, who talked about Shanghai in the tunnels, and some of his stories might have been entirely fabricated. We don't know. We do know Shanghai went down around the world when steamships became a big thing, because then you didn't really need sailors anymore to help with rigging and things like that. So there wasn't a need for Shanghaiing people. There is evidence for illicit activities like drugs and brothels and things like that in the tunnels for sure.
Argon.
Argon.
Alright. So we gonna just move it on to the hospital, or we gonna?
Unless people have more to say, but for right now, I think we're kind of
Yeah.
dead inside, so we'll move on to the hospital.
Me every
It's
day?
probably still used for drugs, honestly.
Seeing as we're all just in the
People probably figured out the schedules. It's just sitting there at the docks, figuring out when it floods and stuff, and they'll probably put a package there, and someone will go pick it up on one of them
Yeah,
little
probably.
doot boats.
Maybe.
Little,
boats.
what are the name of those boats? The
Okay.
dinghies or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Over to Bonnie for the Oregon State Hospital.
The Oregon State Hospital. Okay, let's shift from this little tunnel of depressing and move to another tunnel of depressing.
It's a building of
Hospital.
depression.
With depressing tunnels.
Yeah, with depressing
Okay,
tunnels.
the Oregon State Hospital is located in the northern part of Salem. The exact coordinates are unknown, but it's
Bonnie doesn't know.
Bonnie.
A Google search will tell you the coordinates. Bonnie doesn't know the
Yeah,
exact
exactly.
Why do we need
It's a
coordinates?
mystery to Bonnie.
Alright.
It's located on 2600 Northeast Center Street. The history of the Oregon State Hospital includes historical facts about the insanity from the late 1800s to today. The information we know now includes that these people were infected and treated
Poorly.
Wait, where is he?
Okay.
The real question is, where is he? Because,
know.
Can we just add
he was on like a
sound
completely
effect right
different
there?
Add the
page.
cricket
No,
sound
I'm not.
effect.
No, I'm up
Look at
here with
Donald-
you. I
look
just
at
don't
Donald
have my
Yeah,
Duck
cursor.
sound effect.
I thought you were going to be on page 7 where all the information was at.
No.
This is a
Anytime
big
there's a
jumble
long
of
pause,
Yeah.
we do the dial-up
Here,
noise
I'm
from
just
like.
gonna move this.
That
Yeah.
expert
No, I'm
Windows
here.
power up.
I'm up here.
Okay, wait. I'm moving that information with the rest of it. There you go.
This is the abandoned
Page
asylum
7.
out in Salem, right?
Mhm.
Part of it's abandoned. Part of it's still in
Okay.
operation.
Okay.
Oh,
Page
really?
7.
Yeah, it's not completely
wait, what-
abandoned.
Because
Where
I've
am
gone
I?
into
Page
the part
7.
that is
Okay.
abandoned and like gated off
The
with all the
information-
spray paint. It's creepy in there.
So you've actually been in a part that's not part of the museum.
Yeah.
You illegally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing where you saying Yuck Lord and not your real name. You illegally trespassed
I've
in
been-
an abandoned wing of the Oregon State Hospital.
It was one of the scariest places I've ever been. Just walking in there, it feels like I gotta go back right now. Like I gotta get out here this exact second.
Did you get any photos?
I didn't have my phone on me. I left it in the car.
Dang
Can
it.
we just take like a group trip?
Heck yeah.
Bet.
But
What'd you
like
see?
it sounded
But some people depart.
You're asking your
This
teacher
weekend,
to
you got
To help us
Hey, no,
condone
this
illegal
weekend, I got
activity?
you.
Yes. Yes.
No, I'm.
No, the trip can be to like the legal part, and then what we do when we get there is
Just go through the
none of your
vents.
business.
You can.
Except you're my liability.
See, me and Ryan will go this weekend.
We'll record.
I plan on going
Make
there
a vlog.
eventually anyways.
I'm
You and
busy
Yuck
this
Lord, you
weekend.
mean?
Oh shit. Yeah.
Stop recording
yeah.
right now. This is a play.
I mean, I am technically recording right now.
Well, you're not posting it.
Says who?
Yeah.
Bum, bum, bum.
5 minutes into walking through it, it sounded like people were screaming from like
Oh,
the other
really?
side of the building.
What?
It sounded like people were like yelling at the top of their lungs.
Oh my.
That was actually something that they've talked about that people
What is this,
seem to
rocks?
hear.
Yeah, it sounds like people are like stomping and screaming as loud as you can, and you could hear like stuff rattle.
Yeah, the only thing I could find when I looked into ghosts besides Ava, which we'll get to, is that it says that people just automatically feel like there's just something bad there.
Yeah.
Footsteps, wailing, door shutting and opening for no reason, cries of help, and most people feel like they're being watched.
Yeah, well, the watching thing, well, like, it's just a normal feeling for me.
Yeah.
So, like, I knocked that in the back of the head.
You almost
Yeah, see?
whacked him.
See,
You almost
so, like,
just-
I always feel like I'm being watched, but when I was in there, it felt like, you know when you, like, go underwater and you feel pressure just holding your body?
Yeah.
That's just the whole, like, 20 minutes I was in there, it just felt like someone was just
Dread.
bear hugging
Just
me.
that
Yeah,
dread.
it was
The feeling of
just...
dread, yeah.
Ooh.
See, now I'm,
I'd
I'm
10 out
really
of 10 would go again, though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
10 out of 10
probably at
What
night.
did you
recommend.
see?
Prob-
Was it like dark or was
Yeah,
the
no, I
lights
went at
on?
night. It was
Oh.
like, I think, like 9:30 at night.
What
Did
did
it
you see in
stink?
there?
Yeah.
At all or anything?
Well, yeah, it smells like an old rotting building.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
I'm
did you
just
see? Any
curious.
like equipment and
No,
stuff?
well, I really wasn't paying attention because I just had one of those laser light flashlights with me at the time. So like I was just using a little flashlight. There's definitely a lot of graffiti. In some of the rooms, there's like old beds and like wheelchairs still, but like the hallways, it's just trash and.
Were you solo?
No, I was with a couple of people who I don't talk to too much anymore.
What are their names?
We'll have him
He
come
was
back
debating
again.
it.
Really don't
He was
want to
debating
know.
it for a moment.
Is it people
Almost.
that I know?
No,
Okay.
That
no,
means
they
I
don't live
know.
in St.
Oh.
Okay.
But yeah, it's,
Why don't you
Unless
just
it's-
take Brittany? Do
So
we
you
went
want to
out.
go on a date? Yeah.
not only is
Takes
this
you to
place
the
supposedly
hospital.
haunted, but there's also real life horrifying cases of negligence.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
So-
know what that word means. Someone like me,
like
please.
like
You're like
Parent
not
leaving you
taking
at
care of.
Safeway. That's what it means.
like
All I heard was
That was
Safeway, and
very,
I'm
very
concerned.
specific.
Don't ask.
the least of what I know
Your
of the
parents
hospital,
leaving you
like
at Safeway.
I'm not sure this, you know, you guys fact checked me on this because, you know, you guys have the information, but weren't there like cases where they would like beat the patients and like just leave them for like days and hours on ends where they just not attend to them because like,
I believe that was one of their therapies.
yeah, it was like pretty much what you do with like a crying
The
child
underground
is you just
therapies.
leave them for
Bum,
like
bum.
hours and days at end.
No,
It's
that
like,
was probably
oh.
the above ground therapy.
Oh yeah, probably.
Yeah, so to enlighten our listeners, insane asylums, or as used to be called sanitariums, and now we call them mental hospitals. It was not uncommon back in the 1800s. You could pay an admission fee and go in and watch the crazies, just like a zoo, but it was a people zoo.
I would do that.
That's
too.
just
like
sick.
today, I would probably do that if it was
What
offered.
kind of sick are we talking here?
Which means a lot of people
It's just
probably
sick.
would
Like
watch.
it makes me sick to my
Well, we're
stomach.
the exact
Okay,
same
then,
as the
like,
people back then, so like we're no different.
Yeah, it just kind of makes me sick to my stomach to think that you'd want to just imagine this little suburban family taking out their little Volkswagen or whatever to the hospital just to go watch people
Watch the
and
crazies.
be like, don't be like them. Just telling your kids like, don't be like them. Don't do what they did, or like
Just be like,
glad
look at that
you're
one.
not- yeah.
Look
Look at him go!
Just look at
He's
that
on the
one.
ceiling.
Wow, that one's weird. That all these different things.
Oh man, look at that one go. He's spazzing out.
Yeah.
Don't-
Wow, that one's having a seizure. That
Mommy,
one's
I wanna
being
do that.
electrocuted. I don't like that. That's
Don't-
almost as bad as
don't-
them selling
not fun.
merchandise now.
Don't we already do that with TV and the internet? Aren't we doing the same exact thing?
Well,
True.
yeah,
And-
I've heard
and,
multiple times from my students that what's that horrible website that has all that really bad stuff on it?
Lively?
Like,
Which one?
Isn't that what it's called?
no, the one where you can like watch like the beheadings. and
Oh,
all that.
Best
Gore,
Death
Best
Live-
Shockers,
Lively.
Run the Gauntlet.
Just
Oh yeah, there's more than one. Okay.
Yeah,
There's
one
one
that I've
for
heard of
happy
is
image of a
Lively.
puppy.
Yeah.
Everyone stops at the puppy.
I
Yeah, no,
remember
there's-
in middle school there was a kid that went on lively.com to watch things like that happen to people.
Wait.
Today, I don't know what happened to him.
Don't people even
He's in
like
jail.
put them on their
Probably.
live streams on Facebook and Instagram now too? Don't
Oh,
they just
yeah.
post them on there?
That dude who shot up that mosque in New Zealand or whatever live streamed.
Yeah.
That girl who hung herself live on Facebook a couple
Mm.
years
That
I
just
heard
happened
about
a
that,
lot
yeah.
because
There
I've
was
been on
literally
those
a guy who
websites,
live
and if you
streamed
look up
shooting a
Facebook,
church on Facebook
there's
and then
pages
to
upon
say
pages
subscribe
upon
to
pages
PewDiePie
of people
afterwards.
committing suicide.
There was a
on Facebook
local
Live.
girl
That's a
that did
genuine
that
thing that
once.
happened.
Wow.
So we're pretty much doing the same thing. It's
Just
instead of being an institution,
It's
we're
on the
doing it
web.
online.
It's on the web. The web is the new institution that people were having, like what the Salem Asylum was. essentially. We're just the same people, just new format.
Yeah, it's history repeating itself with new formats.
Insert awkward, depressing noise here.
Do, 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 do.
I don't know who that was. Alright.
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it checks out.
Okay.
Anyways,
Healer.
So we're gonna little shrimp. Sorry, you're supposed to be the host.
oh, so a little shrimp scampi. What are we moving on to?
The ghosts, and then
The
we can
ghost.
mention like Nina and Ava York and all
Okay,
that.
so we're gonna move on to ghosts, just ghosts in general. I'm gonna bring it over to little shrimp scampi.
What's up? What's up? What's up? So
Oh no.
now we get to the subject of how ghosts come to be. There are many different explanations on why ghosts haunt places or certain objects. According to an article that Mental Floss wrote, the 6 most popular scientific explanations on why ghosts "quote unquote" exist are electromagnetic fields, infrasound, mold, carbon monoxide poisoning. Someone else said it was real. I mean, what to believe? Other people just believe that ghosts are balls of energy that roam around, while some also believe they are souls of the dead. However, no one truly knows the mystery behind them. Ooh. So,
X-Files.
what
The real question is, what do you guys think?
exactly? What do you,
That scares me.
That's
more
our
than
IT
ghosts.
guy, AI. I mean, guy.
yeah,
We don't
yeah.
have AI.
Please,
It's not real yet.
be free.
You get all nervous.
Anyways,
So,
Hey,
what is your
Fergie.
guys'
May it hurt me.
what is your guys' opinion on how ghosts are?
Unpopular
Creed.
opinion. I fully believe in ghosts. Just from what I've witnessed, from what I believe personally, I believe that ghosts are real.
I mean, I do too, but like, what makes you believe that they're real? What causes them to be real, in your opinion?
So, alright.
Right.
I'm trying to
All right,
remember
don't
something
at me.
yesterday, you know? So I believe that there's different reasons why ghosts can exist. One reason for protection. Personally, I believe that some ghosts are here to protect others, personally, I've had what I believe is a family member that's okay, that is in my life and is trying to be there for
Yeah,
me.
so-
While others may not believe it, that's how it is. So, at me. I also believe that there are like poltergeists, like bad ghosts out there, people that have been wronged, or like people. This is actually something I thought about last night. Was what if some of the more terrible poltergeists and like possessions and stuff, because we talked about like the idea of demons existing. What if it's like these people, like people that are out there that have like proclaimed themselves to Satan? I'm not necessarily a religious person, so I could be completely off here.
Yeah.
But what if those people who proclaimed themselves to Satan and like witchcraft and all of this different, like the occult, came back as these terrible, terrible ghosts to do these terrible, terrible things? Because that's what they proclaimed themselves to do. Like when in The Conjuring, when that witch killed herself, proclaimed herself to Satan, and said that she cursed the land, and whoever is there, she was gonna haunt them, whoever tried to take her land. Like, what if it was something like that? I could just be crazy, but I mean, I am, but that's kind of my little idea, my little slice of ideas.
What do you think, Darb?
so I would say actual unpopular opinion, because I think there was a poll done and it was like 40-something% of people in the U.S. believe in ghosts or something like that. It was almost half, whatever it was.
3%.
We do. There's not a lot of evidence to support hauntings. We do have evidence of things like a strong magnetic field causing feelings of dread, nausea, paranoia, and in worst cases even hallucinations. We do know infrasound can actually cause feelings of dread and paranoia and hallucinations, and at the same time infrasound can be at the exact frequency to actually vibrate your eyeballs and cause you to have visual hallucinations.
Oh my goodness.
Like Little Shrimp Scampy mentioned, some people even say mold, like, you know, the spores from the mold causing damage to your brain and hallucinations or things like that, or delusions. Plus, humans are just
Dumb.
straight up easy to
Manipulate.
or get to believe something. Now, that's based off the evidence we have now. So either ghosts are real, we just don't have the technology to detect them, or they're a form of energy that we don't know exists yet, or they're not real. And if ghosts are anything, they would be an echo of some type of energy. Like, if ghosts are real, what I personally think is it's an echo. It's like a recording. Like, you can't really interact with it unless somehow you let yourself be deluded into the interaction, and then so it's like you guys see the Haunting of Hill House on Netflix? You know how like the ghosts make you hurt yourself? You're the one hurting yourself. You're the one killing yourself. It's not the ghost. The ghost can't actually hurt you. It's kind of like you let yourself be deluded into a hallucination where you accidentally hurt yourself. That's what I think.
I get that.
Yeah.
You were talking about how we don't have the technology to detect ghosts, but I was on my phone earlier and I went on the App Store and I found a couple.
Oh yeah, we saw those too the other day. Yeah,
Yeah.
the Ghost Detector Pro and like
Yeah.
all these. Yeah, have you tried any of them out?
Actually, I think I do have one installed on my phone, and as soon as I opened it up, it said there are 22 ghosts right near you. Run.
Yeah, those kinds of apps, I think.
See, one
So I mean,
All right, yeah, Yuck Lord.
one thing you have to look at when you look at apps like that is because it's an app, because it's meant to get your attention, how much of that is actually going to be real?
yeah, I know.
And, you know, to go on to going on to Darb's argument and how he believes it, like, I completely agree with that whole statement of, like, it can never actually hurt you, you're just hurting yourself. I completely believe that, because if you go to spiritual people, no matter what religion they're from, if you go to people who aren't religious and just believe, all of them will tell you the same thing. They can't hurt you unless you let them. So if you think about it that way, like, if you're letting them, does that mean that you're going to be doing it to yourself one way or another? You know, going on to Cilantro's idea about the whole poltergeists and all the hauntings and stuff, like, what if that's just because you're getting into your own delusion and allowing yourself to inflict pain upon yourself, but because you're in with your own delusion that you think something's happening? It's like the witch trials. You know, people were eating moldy wheat and stuff from bread, so they started hallucinating.
Yeah, ergamot,
Yeah.
right? Or
Bird.
some type of mold that, yeah.
It grows with the wheat.
Yeah,
Cause these
all those
people-
teenage girls were tripping, basically.
Yeah, hallucinating from mold from the bread, which caused people to think that they were witches, which I think could have an effect on why people feel that about ghosts. But I myself, you know, I look to the science, I look to the facts, I understand, I hear people's different perspectives, I listen to all of them, and like, yeah, bits and pieces, I'm like, oh, that's dumb. But you have to take in consideration that you're only seeing through your own perspective. I myself, I believe in ghosts. I have a lot of experiences, at least what I believe to be experiences. But I feel that we will never actually know unless there's 100% full science to back up behind it, because obviously nothing just happens. There's always a cause for something.
Daquan.
I thought it was
It was
Dwayne.
Dwayne. Oh, we went with Dwayne. That's what we went with. Okay.
Dwayne the Rock
racist.
Dwayne.
Daquan.
What do you
Dwayne
think?
the Rock Daquan.
Dwayne the Rock
That's
Daquan.
Joe's idea. I do think that there are poltergeists, and that some people here would be most likely poltergeists just to screw with people. Like.
So humans are messed up enough that if there is a way
We're
to
petty
harass
enough.
people in the afterlife, you would.
Yes.
Would you personally come back and haunt people?
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
I know I would. Ooh, I already got a list of people. I'm that petty, okay?
No, I would probably scare myself if I was a ghost.
You'd be like,
Boo.
you'd look in the mirror and not see yourself, look down.
I'd be scared.
Gary. Ghosts.
My
Yay,
my
nay.
ghost story.
No, like,
No.
what do you believe in ghosts?
I believe in ghosts. I just feel like when I decide to believe in them is when they can mess with me. So like if I get scared, go into fight or flight mode in my room in the middle of the night for no reason, I'm like, oh, well, if I tell myself like a ghost can't do anything to me, then are they really real? So as long as I don't give power to that energy, then that energy can't mess with me. So it really depends on the time and place.
So it's like a big head trip, pretty much. It's like a power show.
Like I believe in them, but I just like I decide when I want to believe in them.
Yeah, you sometimes choose to not believe in them for your own sake.
Yeah, and I can
So you
manually
don't
do it.
go freaking crazy.
Yeah,
But you know that they are. And yeah, I get that. I used to do that when I was younger. When we get to ghost stories, I'll talk a little bit about that.
Bonnie,
Yeah, what?
have you shared it?
Well, ghosts.
Yes.
What? My
Oh,
beliefs.
sorry, hold on. What is your opinion on ghosts?
You can't.
My opinion on ghosts. The IT guy is now having a heart attack. Be careful.
Yeah, always don't
Oh
talk.
no. My beliefs on ghosts are, I do believe in them, and they're spooky.
The big spook. Yes. Whoever one of you did that, thanks. Jug of iced tea on soundboard.
Alright, now we are to famous ghost detectives with cilantro.
Yes. Hand motion required, but you cannot see hand motion to do hand motion.
So thus you're not in the group.
Cilantro is promoting an Italian stereotype.
I myself, as an Italian.
Okay, IT guy.
ITAI guy.
Right. Sorry. I said guy this time. I didn't say
Yeah,
AI.
no, I
A
did.
guy. Yeah, a guy.
A
I'm not
guy.
saying I, I'm
A
saying
guy.
Okay, a guy.
All right.
Help me.
So, who let him out? Who let him out this time? Get back.
No.
Darb. So we're gonna take. So one of the most famous paranormal investigators would be Edward Warren. I never can remember to pronounce this. Miney, and Lorraine Rita Warren. So Ed and Lorraine Warren, they were American paranormal investigators who claimed that they investigated over 10,000 cases throughout their career. Ed was the only he was a demonologist, but he wasn't ordained by the church. They knew what he was doing, but they didn't have him go through all of the training he
Legal
needed to be
processes and stuff, yeah.
like
Legal
a
process
priest.
for jokes.
They didn't have him. Yeah, they didn't have him do. He's the only man who was ever allowed to do a exorcism that the church was okay with without being a priest and going. Thank you.
Door to door.
Through all of those years of training and practice, he did all this practice on himself. And his wife Lorraine believed that she could see these spirits.
I honestly thought they were brother and sister. I didn't know
No, they were married. They have a kid. They have 2 kids together.
Wait.
That doesn't stop some people.
Sweet home Alabama.
No.
Sweet
Wait,
home
what's your name? What's your
Alabama.
name? I actually.
Take me home,
No, not your
country
name.
Oh
Their
no!
name.
Oh no!
Wait, what's her name?
I just
Am I
realized.
nice?
Cilantro.
And then Lorraine Warren?
Yes. Thank you. Sorry.
Think of like The Conjuring.
Ed. Lorraine.
Alright, so now that we've got that out of the way, yes, they were married, they have a child together. The child is married, and now they run the Warren Occult Museum. So some of their more famous cases would be Annabelle. You guys know that the creepy doll was actually a Raggedy Ann doll. In 1968, 2 roommates claimed that their Raggedy Ann doll was possessed by the spirit of a young girl named Annabelle Higgins. One of the girls' mother bought the doll, the Raggedy Ann doll, from a store. It was like a vintage store because she was about to graduate college and be a nurse. The doll started moving around on its own. She just left it on her bed and they'd come back. The doll would be in a different room or would leave notes on parchment paper, and they never had any, so they don't know where the doll just happened to get parchment paper. They would say, all right. Okay. So the doll would leave notes that would say help us and help Lou. They never really talked too much about Lou, if there was another Lou, because the only Lou that they know was the 2 roommates' male friend. After the doll started moving around a lot more and leaving these notes, the girl that her mom brought the doll, called in a medium, and the medium said that this girl named Annabelle Higgins died in their apartment complex a long time ago and felt friendly around the doll and wanted to inhabit the doll to be with the girls.
These guys?
Yes.
Okay.
So they said, oh yeah, this poor little child can stay in this doll. The doll started moving around more. From time to time, they would leave the doll in one area, and suddenly the doll would be on the girl's bed with the door closed, and she found spots of blood on the doll
What the?
and began to get worried. The notes continued on, and their friend Lou stayed with them. He woke up one night with the doll, slid up his leg, like it was sitting there, slid up his leg, and injured him. I said they sliced into his chest. I could never find any pictures to prove whether that was real or not, but they were absolutely terrified. And the Warrens came in and told them that this was not an ordinary ghost. This was a demon that wasn't inhabiting the doll. It was just moving around the doll to try and inhabit the roommates and take over them in a possession. So they took the doll into their display at the family's occult museum. The doll is still there, even though Lorraine warned that when she dies, which happened in April of this year, the doll would come back to haunt people again. So keep an eye out for that.
That's really spooky.
Yes, it is.
Spooky.
A guy.
Question mark.
They would actually move the doll around a lot. They would move the doll from its regular place. Thank you. And douse the doll with holy water and move it to a separate case. Bless it. A priest would come in and do a prayer, douse the doll completely in holy water, and move it back to its original place. They would never touch it with their human skin, because then they believe that the demon could then attach itself to that person.
But weren't the roommates moving it around bareskin before that?
Mm-hmm. And that's when like the things started happening. Like,
Well, why weren't they possessed would be my question.
they weren't, because it's a process.
Yeah, like touched it so many times.
We call it continuity error.
If you, Apparently, one guy, there's no proof about it. This guy messed around with the doll and mocked it, and then later died in a car accident. That evening, after he mocked the doll. But what I'm thinking with the two roommates, they have to. I guess I can't remember the exact process in which Ed Warren talked about it.
But
said
he talked about how possession works, basically.
Yeah, it starts out with small things and continues to get worse and worse. It was in that second to last stage before possession when Ed and Lorraine Warren came in and took the doll away from them.
Yeah, like the demon needs to wear down your resolve first.
It's pretty much one of those like feeding off of your fear kind of things. It'll eventually latch itself to one of the people, whoever is more vulnerable, and continues to wear them down with their fear. Mm-hmm. And then it will be able to possess the person once the person is vulnerable enough for them to take over.
Just past 36 minutes.
Okay, it's not
Okay.
bad.
We have like about
So-
20 minutes left.
The story of Annabelle is the basis for the movies Annabelle creation, and I don't know if it already came out or not, but Annabelle Comes Home.
I don't think so.
So that will be coming out here soon. It's with also spin-off prequels to The Conjuring, which I talked a little bit earlier about the witch who proclaimed her love for Satan and all of that. These were all loosely based off of the Warren story. They would help produce the movie and give their intake on it to try and make it at least somewhat realistic, with also Hollywoodifying it. They are also part of the Amityville Horror, which will forever be their most popular involvement in 1976, where the
Detective
couple...
Pikachu. I mean Ryan Reynolds. I mean Deadpool. Yeah, Detective Pikachu.
That's the 2005 one.
If you're talking about the new one.
Yeah, the remake.
But the original one in 1976, I think, is when it came. Or that was when the story,
Don't
like when
not
they went
guess.
through it. I don't know. There's so much going on.
I don't think he heard you.
But it was where the couple, George and Kathy Lutz, claimed that their house was haunted by a violent demonic presence so intense that it eventually drove them out of their home. One of the couples before that, the guy got so crazy that he murdered his entire family, which can be seen in the original movie.
Yeah, he went around and shot up his family around 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And the spooky thing is none of the family members woke up from the gunshot. And unlike the movie, I think it's in both of them, unlike both movies,
Yeah.
they have neighbors, like right next door, and the neighbors heard nothing either. And that's the spooky part.
How do you not hear that kind of stuff?
Exactly. How do you
Ghosts.
not hear a gunshot? And like
Ghosts.
he was using like a rifle or something.
Especially
It was
at
Unless-
3 in the morning.
Though there is, like, people, they
The witching
hear these
hour.
kind of things, like that story of, I think her name was Kat, where the people witnessed her getting murdered but didn't want to do anything because they didn't want to get involved. It could have been one of those situations
Yeah.
where they just was like, oh, gunshots, something might be wrong, but I don't want to get involved. I don't want my family to get
I don't
involved.
want to be shot.
Well, I mean, that's a sane thing to, like, it's sane to think that way. Like, you know, they died. I don't want to die too, you know?
Yeah, but at least they could have done is called the police, but they never did.
With the Amityville, with the neighbors not doing anything, it was like, oh, maybe an animal got in their house, maybe this happened. You know, there's things why they wouldn't do it, but at 3 a.m. you'd think that someone would show any concern if there's just gunshots.
It was like 5 shots because
Yeah.
he had like what, a wife, 2 or 3 kids, and then he shot himself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's at least 5 shots.
Yeah.
Either the person does not know how to shoot a coyote or something or a raccoon,
Yeah.
or it's a herd of raccoons, and you should probably help them because they're about to be a wave of raccoons washed over him.
I just imagine this house just get consumed by raccoons.
I mean, they could have thought, oh, you know, it's 3 a.m., it's dark, can't see anything.
Yeah, they totally didn't turn on a light or anything.
Yeah,
you know?
didn't want to wake up the family.
Mr. Magoo over there with the rifle don't want to get involved.
Yeah, so
Uh,
a lot of people claim that it was fake, but Lorraine told the Express Times newspaper that the Amityville Horror was not a hoax. It was also the basis for the 1977 book, The Amityville Horror, and the movie came out in 1979 with a remake of 2005 with the same name. The Warrens' version of events is partially adapted and portrayed in the opening sequence of The Conjuring 2. So if you watch that, then you can kind of get an idea of what happens. There was also the Perrin family in 1971, the Enfield poltergeist in 1977, the Demons case in 1981, and one of their more controversial cases, the Snedeker house in 1986, that was loosely based off for the 2009 film The Haunting in Connecticut, with the Smurl family. Ed Warren died in Monroe, Connecticut, wow, from a heart attack at age 79 in his home, I believe. Lorraine passed away April 18th of this year. RIP. Her son-in-law, Tony Spera, now runs the Warren Occult Museum, where they get all of either it's items that were used in rituals, haunted items, items that were just there when that they believed either like trapped the ghost, a ghost is attached to it, something that was just overall spooky. And they have thousands and thousands of, like, it's just in this small little room in their house. I saw videos of it. It's actually kind of terrifying. You can have tours in there. And then they always have a priest in there blessing the entire room every single day so that the ghosts don't.
So, like, I guess he had a good working relationship with the church, if, like, even though he wasn't ordained by them.
They let him do, because he was only one of only 7 demonologists who have ever exist. So, but he was just the only one that wasn't ordained by the church, but he did have a close relationship because what he was doing.
Did he just, like, not finish getting ordained?
He just never did. He kind of taught himself, or he was close with a priest to help teach him, but he just never really went through all the trouble of becoming a priest so that he could do these things.
Do you know, is there any connection between The Exorcist, that movie, and, like, the Warrens? Like, is it tied into them in any loose way?
I'm not sure. I never found anything on that.
Okay. Because if you don't know, there's a whole story of how The Exorcist set was haunted by a demon or a ghost or something. 'Cause, like, lots of stuff happened on set.
Yeah, I
and
remember.
And all the actors are, like, terrified to talk about making that movie.
Possibly. Ed and Lorraine Warren. Anyways, Tony and the Warrens' daughter Judy Spera Warren take care of all the cursed objects, and most importantly, that infamous Annabelle doll that's supposed to be coming back to take over and injure more people.
Maybe she's just trying to get out and see the movies about herself.
There's nothing about the connection between The Exorcist and Ed.
Okay, I was just curious because,
Imagine. Okay, I kind of want to do this as a prank now. Walk into a movie theater where they have, when the new Annabelle movie comes out, take a Raggedy Ann doll and just sit it in the front row.
Before anyone gets there so no one notices?
Yeah.
No. What you need to do is you need to place it, like, at the entrance. Like, right where the door is, you just put it right there.
Yeah, it's like watching the movie.
I mean, because, like, who goes to the movie theater and thinks, I'm going to sit in the front row?
No,
a lot of people, actually,
Really?
yeah.
Especially if you get there late and that's the only place left.
I'm
Then you're
always
just
the
like-
first one, so I...
Yeah, but just
I also have the steps to a possession.
Yeah, share that.
Step 1 is regression. And then it goes to repression. So to squeeze or hold back. So it's like holding back feelings of like, oh yeah, this is nothing behind me. And then suppression is the third step to from a possession going on. And then you fall into a huge state of depression. You're depressed for long periods of times where even to the point of where you feel that suicide is the only way to stop the depression. And then it goes to oppression. And then it goes to the step 6, which is the obsessions. You start obsessing over
The object.
trying to figure out how to get rid of it, trying to figure out what's going on. And then the last step is the full-on demonic
Yeah, that's what happened to
possession.
them as they were trying to get rid of the doll.
Lord, please speak up a little bit more so my audio sensors can pick you up better.
What?
Speak louder so you can hear you.
What part would... Yeah.
Well, yeah, so
Yeah.
they're pretty much in that state where they were obsessing over the doll, how to get rid of it, what to do. When they called in that medium, called in the Warrens, they were there. They were ready to get slammed with the demonic possession.
Slam.
What?
Demons.
What was that? Were you about to just like...
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no. But
No.
yeah, the Warrens are cool. What do you think?
See, it's that
40
kind of stuff
piece
that I don't
McNugget?
believe in.
Is possessions?
Yeah, like hearing stories like that about like I don't know things that can be like put in movies. I just don't believe.
Mm.
Like I can't help but not believe it.
Well,
you
yeah,
know?
'cause they always get a little bit
I just don't take
horrified.
it seriously.
Yeah, no, I
Understand.
totally agree with that because like if you could put it in a movie, and you're okay with like
Oh,
your own experience being like made as a product and like produced for like mass people to see, then it doesn't seem like it's like
You're taught to not believe what,
Yeah.
what's in the movie. So like
Yeah.
when you see a horror movie, you're gonna automatically believe, you know, like that
like
can't
this
be
can't
real.
happen.
Yeah.
It's a movie.
Yeah.
I think
So, alright, the demons are in Hollywood and making horror movies so that we don't believe them so we can be possessed by them? Is that what you're saying?
yes,
Pretty much. Yeah.
I would believe it.
That sounds wild. That's a fun adventure.
I think, especially with the case of The Conjuring, and like Annabelle, Holly find it a lot. So they put in interviews with Lorraine about the actual story.
Okay.
Okay, we should move
Personal story.
Person.
We have only
Lord,
10 minutes for
regale us
personal
with-
stories.
All right. So I have a lot of stuff happen. I don't know if it's just me and I open myself and allow it just because I grew up and like ghosts were the cool thing and like if you can mess with them, that's awesome. But I remember this one time, actually it just happened this last summer. Me and a couple of people, we thought it would be fun and like we were just being dumb teenagers, so we made a Ouija board. We were really dumb because we're like, oh, we need to make this thing legit. So we made it out of wood, and we were reading about it because for a little while I had a book on witchcraft and demonology, and it told you how to make your own spirit board and like make it legit. So what we all did is we contributed, so we each added our own little bit of blood onto the Ouija board. We also had grave dirt, we had human bone dust, and we had holy water, and I think that was it. But we put it onto the board when we were making it, and we like rubbed it into the grain of the wood so it'd be there. So
So that's how you make a legit spirit board. So
yeah.
people saying they use a Ouija board from the store and get contacted by ghosts is probably nonsense?
9 out of 10 times probably.
Okay.
When Ouija boards were like first made, there was actual accounts, and I've had an actual account with the Ouija board. I was using it, and the glass actually cracked. When we took our hands off of it, the glass cracked when we said goodbye. But with this one, what me and my friends were doing, we did it for about an hour, and there was just this thing where we'd ask it what its name was. We'd all take our hands off real quick and see it shuffle. It would just go like that. So we'd be like, okay. So when we did it, we'd always do it, and it just said its name was Ghosty Boy. Like we're like, okay, yeah, Ghosty Boy, it's fun. It's it's probably nothing. Later on, ended up one of the people that were there for just their name not being out there. I'm just gonna call him Dreadhead. So Dreadhead, after we're done, we say goodbye. We're like, oh yeah, this is nothing. About 20 minutes later, starts speaking in tongues, facing into a corner in my room, just sitting there for 2 hours. We were shoving her, like we were pulling her to the ground, would not budge
I
at
think I know
all.
what you're talking about.
And we're just trying to get this person attention for like 2 hours straight, just not moving, and they're just going blah, 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 like 2 hours straight. And like we weren't doing any drugs that night, no one was drinking, nothing. We were just at my house, just staring at this girl in my corner of my room, just talking in tongues,
Oh my god.
freaking out.
That's
And
creepy.
then once like we go to bed and we wake up the next morning, it's like, man, I can't believe nothing happened last night. Like, that was so dumb. No memory, no clue of anything that happened. And the
She
only
remembered nothing.
nothing at all. And there's several times where this has happened to her. Like, this is not the first time. It's like happened like 5 or 6 times.
Oh, so she's a whatchamahoo's it?
Some
whatchamahoo's it?
people will
Medium or
some people will say it's a succubus, because they look for the negative and demonic spiritual thing. Like, they don't look for like good spirits. They allow spirits to go
Isn't
into them.
Isn't that specific person really open for
Mhm.
ghosts and stuff?
And they
as
even
well?
they after so
Yeah.
many experiences and like just that happening to them, that they're like, okay, like if you want to use my body to communicate, then go ahead.
It would be the person. Yeah.
And they only came to that conclusion because of how many times stuff like that has happened. Because there's times where like I've hung out with her and like we've gone and done stuff, and like she's like, no, I'm gonna stay back. I'm like, okay, yeah. So we'll go do our thing. Like, yeah, she's still hanging out with us, but we won't be with her at that moment. And the next morning, she'll tell us exactly what we were doing when we were away from her, and thinks that she was with us. So there's so much stuff like that that happens where like it just feels like it's just an empty like skin bag of a person because of my own spiritual like sights and like what people allow to happen. That's just one. little
That's
bit.
crazy.
Yeah.
That scares me too, because you look
And I
at
have
me
no
and now I'm
explanation
gonna
for
think
that
about
one.
Yeah,
that.
no, like,
unless
have
unless she
none,
is doing
so-
the drugs and you guys just aren't seeing her do it.
yeah, no, like
No, I'm scared.
I mean, I don't think there was any time because like we were in a car up until we got to my house, and I was sitting right next to her. Because unless you can sneak something by when I'm sitting this close to you, crammed in a car,
She's a magician.
yeah, yeah.
Creepy.
But like there's too many experiences like that that make me feel like, oh yeah, that can't be true.
Take that, Barb.
Take
So-
what?
His real accounts that you have no explanation for. Haha.
Yet there's no explanations
Yeah.
yet. But yeah, that's
She's
just
just mad fooling all of them.
That's whack. You have.
So, my ghost story is when I lived in different state. I'm not gonna say where. I went to my now ex-mom's ex-stepmom's house, and she had a basement that had an outdoor entry. She said that nobody's gone down there, and that like she hears things at night coming from down below the house that she doesn't know like where it's from. So I'm like, all right, well, it's the middle of the day, we're having a barbecue, there's tons of people over, I'm gonna go check it out. So around the house, there are like posts to hold up the house, but there's fencing that goes around, like maybe that much space probably with fencing that goes around it for sunlight, right? When you go down there, it's dark as it can be. Even though how light out is outside, if you have a flashlight, it's constantly dark.
Even
No.
though there's a window that's supposed to be down
Yeah,
there to let light
like
in.
no matter what, it's always dark. And even if you have a flashlight in your hand, like from my phone, I used my flashlight, didn't do anything. It was just pitch black. And as soon as you step foot down the 3 stairs to get down there, you get this feeling in your body like you shouldn't be down here. Like, this is not right. You do not belong here. And the farther you go in, the more your body is like resisting to keep on going in, and like it gets harder to breathe. Like, I don't know, it's just super creepy. And I got to the point where there was something in front of me. I'm guessing it was probably like an old couch down there or something. It seemed soft, like a couch, like fabric. And I ran into it, and I was like, yeah, nope, I'm gone.
Clothes
nope.
on a dead body, you know.
Yeah, you know, but I just never again will I ever go down there, and well, I can't anymore. But
But if you had the opportunity
if I had that
to,
opportunity, I probably would if somebody else went down there with me.
but if you're by yourself,
I'll go there with you, bud.
No, I will never go in that house.
I gotta wonder, like, with a lot of these experiences, if you were somehow dropped in that location without knowing any of its history, without knowing anything about it, if you would still have the same experience.
Maybe.
Like, you know, if Yuck Lord, if you had just somehow you were dropped off at the hospital, you didn't know he was being sent asylum, you didn't know any of this stuff, and it's just like this abandoned building, would you still feel that way? How much of what we're told
Hey, guy.
No.
That caught me off guard. I didn't know how to respond.
Hold on, let me check the cables for a moment. There we go.
Please.
Yeah. Okay. So. Okay, so we're doing my personal story. So when I was in 7th grade, I used to live over by McBride, and my cousin was staying the night. We got into an argument earlier the night, and she ended up sleeping downstairs, and I was sleeping upstairs in my room. Okay. Yeah. The end.
Very spooky.
Very, very spooky. The argument was spooky. We did end up throwing things at each other, but it was like boxes of scalloped potatoes.
Scalloped potatoes.
So, the end though. She was sleeping downstairs on the couch, and you know when the kitchens have those window in between like the kitchen and the living room, like the opening so you can see.
No.
And well,
I'm kidding.
sucks for you. The whole downstairs was like tile or like linoleum, and you know the sound of like bare feet walking on tile. My cousin heard that like really, really late at night, and she thought it was me because the bathroom door opens, and a couple of seconds later she heard the walking into the kitchen, and the kitchen light turned on. That was terrifying. And she sat up, and there was nobody there, and she got this really like deep feeling of just sadness, like pressure in her chest.
Like dread.
Yeah, she was terrified. She started crying. She just couldn't help but cry, and she just couldn't stop. And she got up, and she ran past the bathroom. The bathroom door shut. She ran up the stairs, still crying, and it was crazy that nobody could hear her because she was just pounding on my door because she tried to open the door and it wouldn't open, and she just was pounding, yelling for me to wake up. I was asleep, I couldn't hear anything, and my parents didn't hear anything, and they were right down the hallway. She just continued pounding and pounding for like 5 minutes until the door just opened and she fell into my room crying, telling me that there was something wrong. And I first I told her she was crazy, and I was just overall terrified because in that house alone something always seemed off. I always felt like there was somebody in the house. Like I always felt like I was being watched when I was by my house, like by myself in the house. So, yeah.
Spook.
The big spook.
Spooky. I know. It's getting spooky all of a sudden.
Thank you.
All
A
right.
jug of iced tea on soundboard.
So, spooky story there, Cilantro.
Yes.
But let me throw some cold water on that because I'm your guys'
Sizzle,
teacher,
sizzle.
and that's my job, I guess, to
Thanks, Darb.
crush your souls, right?
Just go
So,
somewhere.
night terrors.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Don't feel nothing but a
I-
menace.
Check those cables again.
Stop.
I don't believe it was a night terror because she's never had one before, like
Yeah.
then, and she's never had one after that. Like she's never been ever had a night terror. I feel like there was something wrong. But
And I think you've mentioned before that that's the house you always had oogie woogie feelings about, right?
yeah, that one and the other house that I talked about yesterday with that dude and his 9 children.
Oh.
That's not
that was
ghost related.
that was the dude. That wasn't
Oh,
a
that's
haunted
what-
house.
Yeah, that was just a dude. The
Oh.
house itself was terrifying because I had a grandfather, a great grandfather die there, but the guy had 9 kids that weren't his, and he wanted me to be that 10th kid. So we'll leave it at that.
Oof.
All right.
Yeah.
That was a
I think
What's the difference between a night terror and a nightmare?
yes.
night terrors
Yes.
you can't really wake up from easily.
I thought night terrors, you're awake, you're just like in
That's like sleep paralysis.
partially like awake or partially awake, partially asleep, but you have like paralysis.
Sort of.
Yeah.
But some people sleepwalk during their night terrors.
I do.
That'd be awful. I mean, I've had like sleep paralysis, but I've never had a night terror, I don't think. But I do have a sleep paralysis demon, and it's
Alright,
not
little wee man, what you got?
Oh my god.
Well, one of my little brothers used to have like sleepwalking issues. So I used to think that he was like possessed or something.
I have sleepwalking issues.
No, this was when I was like 6 or 7.
No, this is now. For me.
Oh, damn.
We're going out of the house before.
I think Dwayne thought you were saying no. Your brother still sleepwalks. I know.
I know.
And then
I'm
Dwayne was getting really
terrified.
concerned, like, how do you know
Yeah.
Jug of Ice Tea?
how you're like pointing at me.
All right, I think Gary has a story to share. Yeah.
Yes. So, when I was like, born, my mom died like I don't know. I was like, she was into drugs and stuff, and so like when I hit 2 years old, she died on my birthday, and I was adopted by like a family member anyway. So I stayed with my biological grandfather for a weekend one time, and he had a dog. It was really mean. I forgot what kind of dog it was, but it was like a miniature pinscher or something. So they're like really mean, aggressive dogs. And I had already had a fear of them, so I was just not having a good time. I was just stressed the whole time. And the house he lived in was like over 100 years old, and it was really creaky, and like the walls were, or not the walls, the like floors were slanted. So it was like terrifying being there for me. And then I was sitting on the couch, and the dog bit my face. And
Nice.
yeah, so I screamed bloody murder and acted like I was dying, which I was at that time. I was freaking out. And so my biological grandfather has like a little shrine, I guess, of my mother in his room, which is like upstairs. Like the only upstairs part of the house is just his bedroom. And there's like a door where the stairs are, so you can shut it. And so my grandpa threw the dog on the stairs and locked the door for the night. And the rest of the night, all we could hear was like banging, and it sounded like something was getting thrown around, like in the stairs and in the room. You could just hear really loud noises. And the next morning, the dog's leg was broken, and
Oh, damn.
my grandpa didn't even go in his room that night. He slept on the couch. And so the next morning, the dog's leg was broken, and it was terrified of me, and it wouldn't go near me. And my grandfather's like girlfriend at the time was a medium, and she told me that my mom beat his ass. But yeah, that's like the
Profanity.
most craziest ghost
profanity.
experience I've had. So yeah.
So
That must have been scary.
Grandpa put the dog in his room where the shrine was, and all night you heard something being thrown around in that room.
Like banging, like it sounded like something was getting thrown at the wall repeatedly, but like all throughout the stairs and all throughout like the whole room. Like you could just hear it like all night.
It was the mother's fist taunting the dog.
No, it sounds like supernatural or Jedi throwing things around is what that sounds like.
Yeah, so
It was the mother's.
my grandpa got rid of the dog, which he had had for like 12 years, and he just got rid of it because it bit me. Which, I mean, makes sense, but like, yeah.
Damn.
Good grandpa?
Yeah.
I guess.
That's my story.
That's pretty kind of Kind of sucks for the dog, but it mostly sucks for you.
Yeah, it hurt.
Do you have a scar from that?
No. Joking, no, but I did scream bloody murder and acted
You
like
said
I
it
was
bit you in the
dying.
face?
Yeah, it bit me in the face. I don't like. I think it was like right, like on
Yeah,
this
because I have a
side
scar
or on this
right
side.
here-ish from a cat we had when I was younger.
On your forehead.
Wait,
Yeah.
wait, a dog
I
bit
have a
you?
People
scar
on the
right here
podcast
and
don't
my
know,
cat
but right
pierced
here
my
is-
chest.
That was because
They can use your imagination.
Yeah.
So I don't like little things because I just feel like they're gonna lunge and like
Allergies.
nip at me. So
jump a mile.
yeah.
They can do
There's a hair on the microphone.
Does anyone else have any stories or? Because I
So, well, I can.
or
Did the AI just take a? I mean, did the A guy just take a drink or something?
No.
It was
Okay,
cooling.
then.
It was cooling.
It was coolant. All right.
Oh yeah.
So
Cool.
Yeah.
Not Kool-Aid, cooling.
no.
I didn't understand anything
So
you guys were talking
Shh,
about.
we're recording.
Can we like?
All right. So I had a trip to the UK and Ireland and in Edinburgh. I went on a haunted tour at night, and it was pretty cool. At the end of the tour, there was we went through like an abandoned pub thing and down into like an underground alley / cul-de-sac kind of thing. And they talked about how there was like unofficial witch trials being held underneath the streets of Edinburgh. And the story they told was about like a daughter, a son, and a mother, and how they were basically like tortured, like these iron tongs to like, you know, break their fingers, and like all just a bunch of like,
Yeah.
they tortured like the son first and then the daughter, and like they were trying to get someone to confess to being a witch basically. And this goes back to King James, who was really big into evil spirits and witches. In fact, he wrote a book on how to hunt witches. It's called the Maleficarum, which translates to like witch's hammer in Latin or something like that. I didn't see anything. Like, I didn't see any apparitions. I didn't see any shadow people out of the side of my eye. I do say I felt a sense of pressure, unease. I wouldn't say dread. I wouldn't go so far as saying there was like a sense of being terrified or, you know, anything like that. But there was definitely some type of, hey, cilantro.
There's some sort of hey cilantro.
Just okay, Darb. I see. No.
I was nice to you.
Yeah, and then you slammed my story with.
I gave a possible explanation. Doesn't mean it's right. I'm just a possible science explanation.
Well, that's
For yuck-
not what this podcast
For yuck
is
lords,
about.
I have
podcast.
no idea other than if his friend somehow was doing drugs without them noticing, but doesn't sound like that's the case. And I have no idea about Gary's story either. Like, 'cause I don't think mass night terror is an actual thing. Like, I don't think multiple people having night terrors at the same time can actually really, and hearing the same noises can actually happen. But I don't know. For mine, I was on a haunted tour, so I probably thought it was supposed to be spooky, so I felt spooked slightly. Suggestion, power
It's a
suggestion.
big spook.
Big spook. Yeah. Okay.
Respect the mic.
So I think Yuck Lord, you had
yeah.
another story to tell.
Yeah, earlier I was talking about how when I was messing with the Ouija board, the glass broke. I actually decided just to tell that story because I remember thinking about it again last night. Well, like everything that happened. So first of all, what we did is me and my kid Buck, me and my buddy, his name is Bucky.
Is it actually Bucky?
No.
Okay.
We're hanging out. He lives up in the BFE, so like no cell services, nothing. So we were bored. We were messing with this Ouija board, and it's from the 80s. It's like old. It's like the actual brand, and like we're like, oh yeah, we'll mess with it. So when we're messing with it, we're like, oh yeah, whatever. It's not doing anything. This is dumb. We take our hands off. walk around the property, get some food real quick, and we come back and we're like, well, maybe we'll just do it again because it was darker at that point. So when we're doing it, like nothing's moving. I look up at him for a minute, and then like I look back down. It's this fat crack in the glass of the little the eye to see what letters are getting chose. It's this big crack. So both of us just take our hands off, same time, freak out. It's like, whoa, this is spooky. Like I don't want to be in because it was in an RV, right? It was just where we went and hung out because it was in the house. And so got out of the RV and like, okay, whatever. So we went onto the shed, like, because you just go on top of the RV and then you climb up and you're on top of the shed or whatever. So we're on top of the shed for a little bit, and like it's kind of long, about like 20 feet long, so like it's a good size. And we're just kind of sitting there and, you know, just kind of talking and looking at the moon. And all of a sudden it just sounds like on this metal, and like obviously something stepping on metal is going to be distinct 'cause it's metal. Metal is kind of loud when something hits it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just sitting there and like it's pitch black 'cause, you know, we're in the middle of the woods. There's no street lights or anything, so it's just whatever lamp is on the side of this house. And so out of no, and like it's not like someone else could have been up there because the only way to get up is from the RV. And plus it's a metal roof. Like you're gonna hear that like getting hit on, and it's gonna be like banging on there. So we're sitting on there and we kind of hear like two steps, like, oh, maybe there's a bird in there. But then like about a minute goes by, and like it's like the summer, so it's like really hot nights still. It's like 75 degrees and like there's like no breeze, and he's like, it's freezing outside. Like I gotta go inside, get a jacket or a blanket or something. Like, bro, it's hot. Like I'm about to sweat still. It's like, no, it's just really cold. I'm like, okay, whatever. So right before we get off, we just hear those like bangs again. I'm like, oh, there's those stupid birds. Like whatever. And as soon as I start getting up, it just starts getting faster and faster. And it's like, and then it's just,
It scared me.
stops.
Scared.
And then after that, it just, like, there's no way that a bird could do that because it sounded like it was going closer
Towards you guys?
towards us
And you were on top of the roof
of a shed.
of a shed,
So, and the only way,
sound was coming from the roof of the shed.
yeah, like on
Okay.
top, like smacking down, making loud noises, and it was just the freakiest thing ever because it's, you know, a bird's not gonna just start slamming that loud and keep going like a.
I guess I just enjoyed your guys' company and didn't want you to leave.
Yeah, I guess so, but like that is.
That's the big spook.
Okay. We're going to try to science this.
All right.
And whenever you try to science something, you have to generalize sometimes, especially because, you know, I'm a science teacher, not necessarily a scientist. All right. Metal, when its temperature changes happen, can pop. I've never heard of da 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 da. I don't know how to explain that, but the occasional pop in one or two spots, maybe, yeah. Sure. And then maybe you guys just didn't notice it was cracked already, but I doubt it.
Well, you doubt everything, Darb. I'm gonna throw mad shade at you this
Yeah,
entire
that
time.
That ain't science. That's just you not
But
believing
he's-
his story.
That's what you
He's
believe.
not
No, I believe
No,
his
I-
story.
yeah.
I believe, at the very least, I believe he believes.
He's not a
Darb
believer.
is a deconstructive menace.
Is there something wrong
I am
with
going to
that?
find your power switch after. I mean, I am going to talk to you after this podcast.
It is well hidden.
Probably-
Good luck trying to find it.
The odds are in my favor.
No, they are not.
I have the high ground.
I have calculated it. There are exactly 0.3 possible outcomes of you winning.
Wow.
Out
So
of
you're
how
saying
many?
there's a chance.
No.
All right.
No.
No, I said, well.
Here we go.
Anyways.
But yeah, like, this is one of those really cool subjects. And it's just one of those things that, unfortunately, there's just not a lot of people in the field that have a budget to actually do it the way it probably should be done. Like, we just end up with a bunch of anecdotal stories. So before we sign off, we're gonna mention a few of the ghosts about the tunnels and the hospital, because we didn't really mention it. We kind of forgot that part, so we're going to circle back around to it. Cilantro, tell us about the famous, well, tell us about that one ghost in the hospital that you found out about.
That one ghost.
Yes,
Well,
that
that
one.
one ghost. Okay.
Really big story.
Okay. Okay. That one ghost, Darb, has a name, and her name is Ava York. She died in the late 1800s. Her body was never claimed and was buried in the asylum cemetery, and then 18 years later, her body was exhumed and cremated and placed in a copper urn to join those other thousands of unclaimed victims. Her death led to a story that was published in Salem's Daily Capital Journal on November 25th, 1896, so maybe a month or two after her death. Ava York was 36 years old and she wasn't mentally ill. She was considered an epileptic and was restrained to the hospital's asylum-era epileptic ward. She was induced to 5 years of traumatizing therapy. It's believed she could have suffered electroconvulsive therapy, lobotomies, eugenics, and hydrotherapy. But she was nothing more than a severely depressed woman and was an alcoholic, but then that equaled insanity. She died around 2 p.m. on a Tuesday on one of the asylum's bath days in the epileptic ward. She was left unattended and had a severe seizure that was brought on by her grueling therapy. Since there was no evidence of drowning, the hospital was ruled in no way responsible for her death, and it was considered Ava's fault for the way she died. It was her fault that she was insane, and it was just her fault for having a seizure.
So,
How you get a burp suit?
if... Oh, easy. You just say you blame him. No, like, that's it. Like, you don't have to have any logical explanation, especially back then. For those that don't... It wasn't.
No, they said they're not going to have a logical explanation for science.
You should. That's what science is all about.
You should have a logical explanation for that.
Wait, question.
Oh, for Ava?
Answer.
I'm not getting
What's
into...
the type of therapy that they do on people who have alcohol poisoning? No, it's not chemo.
It's not chemo. I'm not sure.
For, like, in, like, rehab, like, when they give you the...
No, it's like when someone literally is dying from alcohol poisoning and they get put in the hospital, they get put on, like, this.
They like pump your stomach.
Yeah, they basically flush your
No,
system.
it's different. I don't know. I'll have to look it up, because, I don't know. I don't want to put that.
Well, I was going to say, for those that don't know, eugenics was the practice of checking out a person's history to see if they basically had good genes. And then if you did not have good genes, you could, if you're a woman, they do a forced hysterectomy on you so you couldn't have kids. Or if you're a man, they basically...
Do it the old puppy dog style and just chop.
Yeah, because I don't think we were at the small incision go in snip then. I think it was the more.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Sounds like my
Why
dad.
were we just...
But that was the practice of eugenics. Like if you didn't have good genes, then you shouldn't have more kids.
I am curious.
Started in America, and do you know there's a really famous dude who wrote a book in America? I forget his name. There is another
Well, it must
podcast
not be
that
that
talks about
famous.
this. So I'm going to do a plug. Science Versus. They did a whole episode on eugenics. It's really good. Anyways, this American scientist, and I'm going to put that in quotes, wrote this book, and it got all the way to Germany. And guess who read that book?
Me. You.
Hitler.
Oh.
Oh, dear
And Nietzsche.
Lord.
And then
We're
Nietzsche
going
wrote
on a whole new
Superman
roller
or whatever,
coaster.
and then Hitler read that one as well. And yeah, so eugenics, Nazis.
I am curious
Eugenics,
though.
Nazis, same thing.
So what's creepier with the whole Oregon State Hospital? There was a series of tunnels that connected all the buildings. Originally, it was claimed for transporting dangerous patients, but darker evidence suggests that these strange experiments were carried out on the mentally ill patients underground, deep enough that not even their screams can be heard from the upper levels. And I'm curious if Ava could have been one of those patients.
Ooh, spooky.
It's possible.
She was there for like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
When was she in there?
I don't.
When did she die again? Can you see the date?
She died in 1896. I don't have the exact date.
Okay, because I know for a fact lobotomies were considered good for quite a long time. Electroshock therapy, I think, was one of the ones that was never 100% approved by most doctors. Like, there's only a small few that thought it was good.
And we still
Lobotomies, like, everyone loved lobotomies, especially that dude, another American dude, who did the whole, oh yeah, no, you don't need to cut open the head, we just do the ice pick thing through the eye and
Oh, no, nope.
and you wiggle it around,
Nope.
you
All
scramble,
right.
and then you,
Yeah, so
Standard Saturday for me.
bruh.
Standard
Dude, okay. Where's
Something
the
again?
Get the plug.
The plague. But if you walk into the hospital, on another note, the rooms, the areas of the building that wasn't turned into a museum or a functioning hospital, the building and tunnels feels like when people walk in there, they feel a presence of evil. There's footsteps and wailing that can be heard when people are alone. Doors shut and open for no reason, and cries of help can be heard coming through the walls, and people always feel like they're being watched.
yeah. And you heard some of that, right, Yuck Lord? Like you thought you heard screaming.
Yeah,
Or you
it
did
sou-
hear screaming.
Yeah, no, it sounded like people
Yeah.
were just like yelling, not
Yeah.
even words, just yelling.
Just yelling, yeah. Okay.
It's poopy.
All right, and so press F for Ava.
Press out. Fun fact, you can also buy merchandise if you go to the museum.
Just in, the museum part.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't buy a mattress. So.
Do the outro, my dude.
Oh, he's fucking up. We still have to talk about Shanghai tunnels.
And then we don't want to give Nina, right?
Nina, don't.
We don't want to give Nina short shrift. She is one of the more famous hauntings of the tunnels. I mean, there's more. Like, I guess there's like a little 9-year-old shoe shine boy supposed spirit down there, and a few other like mobsters running away from being shot by Tommy guns is also another haunting you hear in one basement. But let's talk about Nina.
Yeah, so Nina, people who explore the tunnels believe that the spirit of a woman by the name of Nina resides there. She was a Klickitat Indian who lived along the Columbia River. One day she was kidnapped by white slavers and sold into prostitution. She was brought to the Shanghai tunnels, and missionaries went down and befriended her and asked her for all the information on some sort of practice and who's doing it. It could be the practice of Shanghaiing in general. It's unknown what exactly they were looking for. In return, they said they'd send her back to her family. They took all of her information to the police, and 2 days later, she was drugged and then thrown down the elevator shaft in the building she was under. Today, she haunts the area that is just below the pizza parlor called Old Town Pizza and a restaurant called Hobo's Restaurant. Many people who explore the tunnels claim smelling perfume reported to be hers, and after smelling perfume, many have felt clothes being tugged on and getting a ghostly chill, and many people are convinced that it's the spirit of Nina. There's also plenty of reports, such as people who have gone down there have heard moans, talking, screaming, and the sounds of crying. Just the amount of energy that you feel down there is just absolutely horrifying.
I think
Except for Nina.
I think and he's not with us today. But 40 piece McNugget barbecue sauce.
40-piece chicken McNugget with barbecue sauce for only
$8.99.
$8.99 at McDonald's. Rest in peace.
Anyways, he talked about how when he went on the Shanghai Tunnel tour once, he like talked to the tour guides and how at least the one he talked to was pretty like Oh yeah, there's a bunch of weird stuff that goes on down here, and I don't really like it.
He did once go down there by himself.
McNuggy?
Yeah, McNuggy went down there by himself.
How do you do that without a...
You can go down there by yourself. Just bring your flashlight and they just tell you good luck.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's go.
You can just go down there and wander around by yourself with a flashlight. Don't expect to use your phone flashlight because your phone will die within a couple of minutes because, I don't know.
America.
Because America.
Because they're American phones.
Because they're American phones.
Because they're made in China.
Don't worry, I'll just have a Nokia brick, and if a ghost tries to get me, I hit it with it.
You're talking about a Nokia?
Just take a bed, just...
Yeah, you can go down there by yourself, and he said it was the most terrifying experience he's ever had. He almost got lost down there until he ran into a tour guide. But he said he will never go down there by himself again unless...
I think we have to... Only way to determine which one's more terrifying is McNuggy has to sneak in to the hospital like Yuck Lord, and then Yuck Lord has to go into the tunnels by himself.
Let's go.
Road trip this weekend.
Go to Seattle.
We'll vlog it.
We'll vlog it.
Hey guys, welcome back to the
If you start in
vlog.
Portland, it's on the
Welcome
way.
back to Gray Zone.
If you somehow start in Portland, it's on the way.
There also is Shanghai tunnels in Seattle too.
Yeah, actually, when we were researching this, we found out there was more reported cases of Shanghai in the Puget Sound area than there was in Portland.
That was
I heard in
surprising.
Seattle and Astoria.
Seattle, Astoria, Chicago, Atlanta.
Yeah, it was worse in
Sacramento.
Astoria and Seattle.
I do remember when I was a lot younger, I did one trip to Seattle with my grandparents when I was staying with them, and we walked past the entrance to the Shanghai tunnels, and we could have walked in there and could have done it, but I was like 9, so my grandma thought it was too
And
iffy.
we got to wrap this up, so Cilantro, give us our closing speech.
Oh man, I can never do this as good as
McNuggy,
yeah.
40p.
All right. Wow, that was quite the interesting discussion that we just had. And in the end, I think we can all come to the conclusion that there's Darb is wrong, but there is no
Darb will forever be
solid
wrong.
answer to whether ghosts are real or not. Press F for Nina and
We do know that
Dude,
Ava.
wait. What if we discovered ghosts are real in this podcast?
That would
Bro.
be cool. But anyways, that's all the time we have for today. Stay tuned till next time when we talk about different topics, anything, and just about everything. Like, is the moon cheese? Stay woke, Gucci fam squad, and don't be led by the shepherd, my sheep. And keep those tinfoil hats on. This is Cilantro signing you off. Peace out.
Oh god, that's cringy.